You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner and you're listening to Mark of the Maker. This is episode 110 of the show, and we have a special guest with us that's going to be a really fun discussion. We'll get into that in just a minute. Let's make sure we have everybody here. Actually, we don't have everybody here. We have most everybody here. We have Mr. Sean Kendrick.
Hey, hey.
And we have Mr. Tom Crine.
Hey, guys.
And normally Michael is with us, and I know he really, really wants to be because he wanted to be part of this one big time, and he's having some technical problems. So we're going to start without him, and if we can get him to join, then that'll be awesome. And if we can't, we can't. But that's the plan. So let's take care of some business. I think Tom's going to kick us off.
Hey, guys. Those of you that are making knives, we've got a sponsor that has a lot of knife stuff that you won't find anywhere else. And you may not find it there. I was talking to Patrick at the Kentucky show, and he had some really cool crystallized titanium. And I guess everybody picked up on that free shipping and ordered a bunch of it because it's all gone. But you got to be on your toes. Check his site. Often he comes up with some crazy cool stuff. You might see robots. You for sure are going to see some Damasteel and titanium zirc, all that kind of stuff. It's our good friend George at amxinc.com, amxinc.com. Check out his site and get some stuff headed your way. He's got free shipping.
What's the actual name of the company, Tom?
American Medical Exchange.
Every time.
American Metal Exchange.
Yes. Thank you, George.
We do appreciate you, and I got to get some Damasteel coming. I've been threatening, so I may get some Odin's Eye or something.
I've been trying to write up a business case for a Mark of the Maker war robot, but I can't.
Dude, those robots are kind of cool.
They're pretty crazy.
They're cool.
It feels like some kind of futuristic arms dealer almost, right? War robots, meteorite, crystallized titanium. It's like,
he doesn't have crystallized titanium.
Well, sore spot.
I really wanted to try some, so I got to keep an eye on the site. George,
yes.
Restock it.
That's right.
You know you can't smoke it, right?
Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
I'm good.
All right.
Oh, the
Sean.
Disappointment.
Yes. All right, you got some for us, Sean?
Yeah. Well, first off, we're going to advertise for our friends at Giant Mouse Knives. They're great guys. We love their products. And I wanted to congratulate them because they put up pre-orders for their Aros model today, and it sold out in 13 minutes.
That's wild.
Yeah. Congratulations to them, and well-deserved. And for you folks who are trying to get one, they will be making more. This is just the pre-order, and they're going to try to, restock and get new production going as quick as they can. And since you can't get an Aros at this very moment, I would recommend picking up something else from them because all their designs are exceptional. Their construction quality is excellent, and really you can't go wrong with any of their offerings. They're just super nice knives at a really nice price.
Yep, good stuff from good people.
13 minutes is insane.
For real.
For a production batch.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Congrats, guys.
Wild. What else you got, Sean?
All right. Now, we always got to say thank you to the folks at Patreon. You guys help keep the lights on. You keep the mics moving. You keep our equipment as fresh and new as we can afford to keep it, which is better than we deserve. And thank you. You guys' generosity is humbling, and we truly, truly appreciate it. And if you're listening and would like to head over to Patreon and maybe throw a buck or two our way, we'd appreciate it. And just go to Patreon and search for Mark of the Maker, and we'll be easy to find, and you can help support this thing.
Appreciate you guys.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate your help. There's a lot of folks there that have stuck with us for a long, long time now, so we appreciate you.
Should we leg hump them about mugs again?
Eventually, we're going to have mugs. We have mugs. We're working on trying to figure out how to get them to you.
Before this is out, you'll
okay. All right. Tom's making promises. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. We do have another special sponsor, and that is Bob and Sue's Terzola. And Bob has been working on a couple of projects. Suze has a background in moving pictures and that sort of stuff, and so they've been collaborating on some stuff. There is an 11-part series called A Sharp Life, and that's a thing where Bob goes through a lot of the stuff that's in the book and makes an ATCF start to finish, which is really cool. And that's a series that's going to be a subscription thing. Basically, you buy access to it. It sounds really, really interesting. And then there is going to be a long-running subscription series called Shop Talk, I think. That's basically like ask Bob questions and get help with what you're working on. And there will be a Zoom Q&A that's part of that. It's available to subscribers. There's videos for some specific techniques and other stuff. And so information about it will be available in mid-December. They'll be streaming it directly out of terzuola.net, which is really interesting. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do that. They got a bunch of folks working behind the scenes on that. And mid-December, it'll show up on their website. You should go check it out.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's a can't miss kind of thing, really.
For sure. So thanks, Bob. Thanks, Suze, for your support of the show. I know Susie's a big fan, longtime listener, and we appreciate you, and we hope folks go take advantage of that.
Mid-December is probably when this is going to be coming out.
Awful close. Yes, yeah. Awful close. So by the time this is out, you're going to start want to start looking over there on terzuola.net. Well, like I said, we have a special guest this time. Knife maker, fair to say knife maker extraordinaire, Sean?
Oh, dude, a knife maker's knife maker, and the very definition of such.
I like that. And that's Mr. Shane Sibert. Shane, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Shane.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
No, dude, thanks for coming on. We've been looking forward to this. We've wanted to have you on for hell and forever, and I'm glad that the timing was finally right.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And Birch isn't here to hog all the questions. Just kidding, Michael.
Yeah. He's pounding on the table at his place right now. I can feel it. Yes.
I just think it's solid we get to use his outline, but he doesn't.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of like he's here.
He did us a solid and wrote up a structure for us to walk through, which is a lot like our other structures that we walk through, but that's cool. It gives us something to look at and kind of a little roadmap for our conversation. Shane, your ears must have been burning because I don't know how many episodes where your work has come up in the conversation. Always in a very positive way, obviously.
Oh, cool. That's neat to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can send us your advertising fee later. We talk about your stuff a lot, though.
We're all fans.
All fans. Absolutely. Cool. You know, we usually do this thing where it's like a bio kind of thing where we'll go through where folks came from. And part of that is just to help people understand who it is they're listening to and what they're about and kind of how they came into this thing. And sometimes that story really helps people understand a little more about the maker. And, you know, with this kind of stuff, it's a common phrase, right? Buy the maker as much as the knife. And so yeah, let's help tell your story, man. So maybe introduce yourself and kind of what your forte is in the knife making world.
My forte, boy.
That's a big word. I don't even know what that means.
It's French.
Probably.
You know, I kind of like doing a lot of things. A lot of fixed blades. Folders I like to do. A lot of freehand grinding, mostly. And just simple tools and grinding away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple tools, but like simple tools with clearly a very next level clean thing. I think that's the piece that always gets us is it's not flashy work by any stretch, but it's the clarity speaks volumes. Yeah, sometimes it is, but
Yeah, I've heard that before, and it's a great compliment to me because some of my influences were makers like Jim Hammond, who his execution is flawless, and I keep striving to attain that, and I don't seem to get there. But he's always very clean work, and I admired that greatly. So I try to mimic that as much as I can.
If someone wanted to see your work, what's the best way to see your work online right now?
Right now it's Instagram or Facebook. I have a website.
Facebook group?
I don't have a Facebook.
Just your personal
group.
page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a website, but it's severely outdated.
Same.
It's just kind of a placeholder. But my most recent stuff I usually post on Instagram.
I think that's where I follow you.
Yeah.
yeah. So people can look on Instagram at Sibert Knives, SibertKnives, and they'll find Shane's stuff there.
Yeah.
Now, are you taking orders, or your order books open, or how do you do your sales? Just out of curiosity.
I try to limit orders because I get overwhelmed very easily.
Right. Same.
I try not to take orders for any folding knives because I like to keep things fresh and keep evolving. Fixed blades I take orders for on occasion, especially some of my signature pieces.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Folders, I just like to build them and put them up for sale. It's those big lists really are overwhelming and tend to kind of, I don't know, they restrict your creativity maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Feels that way.
I agree. I like to keep things, I like to try new things, and it's easy to get bored when you do this for a living. So you got to constantly try new things to keep the interest going.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want the anchor hanging around your neck.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. I think lots of folks find themselves in that spot, especially after doing it for a long time, right? That maybe it's just better or healthier is a better, maybe a good way to say it, to be in a spot where you make what you want to make when you want to make it.
Well, it seems like when you're a new maker, a list feels really good because it's like you have work. You know you have work, but once you get where you can sell your work, it really does get restrictive.
Yeah, I find that when you want to make something, things it's better. The end result is better.
Yeah, there you go. So let's go to kind of the beginnings of stuff, Shane. Like, so you're in the Pacific Northwest now, right? Did you grow up there, or is that where you started out your life, or did you end up there?
No, I was born here in Oregon, and fortunately, it seems to be the hub of the knife making community for some reason.
There's a lot going on, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of big companies and knife makers galore around here. So yeah, I was very fortunate to be brought up in Oregon where there's such an influence.
Right. So you were born and raised there and just, ended up staying. What did you grow up in out in the country where you were doing stuff outside, or were you more of a city kid, or what was your beginnings there?
A rural environment.
Yeah.
Like any kids in the 70s and early 80s, you played outside and drank out of the hose, and and you didn't come home until the sun was going down. So that's kind of what we did, and we entertained ourselves quite a bit as kids. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you get your first knife? What was that like as far as time frame? A lot of people, it's with scouts or something. Sometimes it's if they have a parent or relative who's into hunting or outdoor stuff, they'll get a knife as part of that. What was that for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it stems. My grandfather always carried a pocket knife. I come from a family of tradespeople, electrical business, and electricians, auto body. So, I was around people that worked with their hands for a living. And my grandfather always carried a pocket knife, and I was fascinated by that tool. And I think it started there, put the seeds in there.
Right.
Do you remember what kind of pocket knife you carried, just out of curiosity?
He had so many. I think it was like the old timer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the case,
Like a Stockman.
Yeah. And they weren't very big. They were small. Just, he'd open up packages and stuff and cut wire. And he'd do a lot of things with those little knives.
My grandfather passed some years ago, but I have at least one of his pocket knives. And it's funny because when I was a kid, they didn't seem like these little teeny tiny knives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But today I would call it like a peanut slip joint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a little teeny thing. And I know he had a couple larger ones, but they didn't seem tiny to me when I was a kid. And yeah, that was very influential for me as well. That was something he often said. Proper man should have a knife in his pocket. It's just a thing.
Yeah, that was kind of it. And it's funny because he didn't look at it like we look at him. He looked at it as an everyday thing a man carries in his pocket to open up the mail and what have you. He didn't look at it as a investment or a collection or anything like
Right.
Well,
So
I carry one of those kind of knives in my pocket every day.
Yeah.
That's why it's usually not a custom, but they get used.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's the concept of, today they call it EDC, right? But that's really what it was. It just didn't have that name, right? It was just, here's the normal stuff you put in your pocket when you go to do something. Right.
Yeah.
So like for my grandfather, he always had a watch on, he always had a knife in his pocket, and he had a handkerchief. That was it every single day. That stuff was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So when did you get your first one? Was it a slip joint like that, I assume, or something else?
Oh boy, I assume it was some sort of a slip joint. I would think it was probably an old timer or something that he gave me during a Christmas present or something like that. Yeah, it was mostly just those little slip joints.
Was it, I assume it was kind of the same thing for you. It's like, I know for me, it was almost like, I don't know, coming of age thing is maybe too strong, but it was just like there's like a recognition. Oh, you're getting a little bit older. Okay, here's a pocket knife. You know what I mean?
Passage, yeah.
Yeah, rite of passage thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But like you described, not the focal point, just a thing, a tool that you carry around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us as kids, back in the 70s, there weren't really a lot of locking folders. So we got slip joints and we learned how to use them the hard way.
Yeah. There was that in the Buck 110, right?
Yeah. We threw a lot of slip joints playing Mumbly Peg as a kid and just chicken and crap like that, and got a lot of stitches and fun shit.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, man, when did the bug really bite you? When did you start seeing knives as kind of, the way we all see them now, as something more than just a knife?
Geez, probably high school. Because I just remember looking at knife magazines in class and not looking at my books. So I would have the magazines behind the peaches, and hiding it from the teacher.
Right.
So and I think it was there before then, but that's when I really started to, discover the world of knife making and knives and through the magazines on the book stand.
And now you're talking like blade and combat knives and
fighting knives,
tactical knives. Fighting knives. That's
and there was was it Knife World, or was it like a newspaper
big
type
newspaper
dealio?
size. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that, and So anything to get your hands on when you're just a kid in the early '80s.
So So are you a collector also, Shane, or just I'm just curious. I don't know if you play with custom stuff or.
I'm not really a collector.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had a few customs, but nothing really what you see today with guys with cases full of knives. I'm not really. I don't really have. I have a collection of Benchmade knives, but other than that,
Right.
Wonder how you came by that.
Yeah, it seems to have my name on them, which is really neat. But, so I do collect some of those.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
as in terms for custom knives, I used to, but not so much anymore. Yeah.
What kind of knives catch your attention? Like custom stuff? Just curious.
The stuff that really brings out the kid in me are still the early 90s tactical knives.
Yeah.
The Jack Cranes, the
Hollow handle, yes.
the Lyles. When I see something from back in the day, that is really iconic, the Rambo knives from Gil Hibben type of thing,
Yeah.
the originals, boy, that really perks my interest.
Yeah, I can remember reading about those and lusting after them and never thinking that I would ever see them in person or handle them.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fun stuff.
One of the things that I think influenced all of us, and this seems to be a really common theme with folks we've talked to on the show, is the influence of knives in movies and TV, media kind of stuff. And do you think that was a factor in your interest growing while you were in high school? It's kind of about the right time, right, for some of that sort of stuff to happen.
Absolutely, and there's no question that had a huge influence on me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other people my age, and it's the same for them.
Right.
So yeah, we all have that in common.
Yep. Hard not to be, right?
Yeah.
Just this huge social movie, pop culture kind of influence.
Yeah. It was different because the knives they featured in the movies were more of they were their own character.
Yeah.
It represented resilience, self-sufficiency, that type of thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were definitely left an impression.
So when you were starting to read magazines about knives and getting kind of into it, did it come pretty quickly? I guess it does if you actually read the stuff in the magazines, that there was this difference between a production knife and then there were people actually making knives one at a time that were custom. Was that something that kind of the light bulb went on about later, or were you figuring that stuff out around that same time frame?
Back then, the reason why people made knives is because production knives weren't very good.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Or there wasn't that quite thing that somebody wanted in a production version. All you had basically access to was, like I said, the Buck 110s or old timing knives. So that was kind of the outlet where you could create your own of what you wanted, your knife of what you wanted. And in reading those magazines, just fired the imagination.
So you mentioned, your family having a long history with trade stuff. Is that something that you ended up getting into as well because of your family's lineage with that stuff? Or do you end up on a different kind of path as you're getting into high school and coming out of high school and after? Yeah,
I ended up on a different path. I've always been more of the adventurer, seeking that out. It was impressed upon me that my family wanted me to be an electrician.
Yeah,
and I didn't like that. So there was a lot of other things I wanted to do. I wanted to explore. So I had a little stint of wanting to be a commercial diver.
Oh, wow.
When I was very young, and I pushed hard for that. And there was a time there when I was 14 years old, I became the youngest certified scuba diver in Oregon at that time.
Wow.
And I was pretty proud of that. And I dove for a few years, and I had the intention of going to be a commercial diver. I had a little accident where I blew out my eardrum on a dive here in Oregon, in Newport, and it was never the same since then. And I just kind of, the idea kind of dissolved.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of, now what do I do?
Right. Right.
Type of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Yeah. You had a plan, right?
Had a plan. And that, courses change when you're young. So,
Right. Right.
yeah.
So when did you start thinking about making knives?
Probably, well, I started making knives in 94.
That's interesting. I
Yeah.
started in 93.
Yeah. Yeah. 94 is when I actually started making knives. I bought a little grinder from Sears, I think it was, a little Craftsman type grinder. And I was trying to figure things out. And I had bought quite a few books. And that's how I learned. Remember David Boy's book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. So, man, just books like that. And thinking about how I wanted to design knives and what I wanted to do. But it started off as just playing around and learning how to do things. So, yeah.
Was it, there's the train.
Choo choo.
Was it a thing, Shane, for you? It's literally coming through the shop. It's right behind Tom's bench. Was this a thing for you where the idea of making knives is something that because you wanted to try to realize an idea or a concept that you had in your head? Or do you think it comes from that family thing of being very hands-on and unafraid of diving into stuff, or more of a curiosity thing? What was the impetus of that for you?
I think it was a little bit of all those things. It wasn't really in the forethought when I was doing it. But I just had this drive I suddenly wanted to make knives and see if I can do it. It was interesting because my uncle, I was at a family dinner one time, and my uncle, we were talking, and he said, we were talking about knives, and he said, "Oh yeah, I make knives." And I kind of looked at him like, "Really?"
Wow.
Yeah, and I had no idea. And he was in the electrical business also, but he was, worked with his hands, and he dabbled in a bunch of things. So he invited me over to his house, and I went over there, and he had this shop with, it wasn't just knives. He was dabbled in everything, guns, and he made duck calls and a bunch of stuff. But he'd actually forged this knife, and I was so fascinated by it. And sometimes all you need is to see that somebody else has done it,
yes,
to let you know that, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I think that's where the jumping off point happened, to where, I'm going to give this a go. And so it's kind of started there. That's
really cool.
Yeah.
Especially that it was a family member. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. And it was just not something that he, it was just something he was fiddling with. It wasn't anything serious. Yeah. But that's all it took.
Yeah. We different people that we've interviewed, there's been a lot of interesting versions of what that launching point was. Right. And in some cases it was, they somehow ended up going to a knife show, and there was a guy there selling knives that they made, right? And they were like, whoa, these don't come out of some nameless, faceless factory somewhere. People actually make knives, right? Or, different versions all along the way between your experience and stuff like that and others. And it's really interesting to hear for people what it was that, you know what I mean? Turned the light bulb on, like, oh snap, I can go do that.
Yeah.
So when your Sears grinder was a belt grinder setup, or was it like a grinding wheel, like a spinning wheel thing, like you sharpen mower blades with, kind of a grinder, or what kind of grinder did you start with?
It was like a 1-inch by 36-inch little bench grinder.
Yeah.
For hobbyists.
Okay.
It wasn't anything serious. And starting there and reading various books, Bob Loveless's book, and it's just you start putting things together. You start buying a drill press and some files, and it just kind of grows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you were doing this at the time in like a basement or garage, or you had a separate building or something, or?
Well, I actually had it set up in my parents' garage. I was like 23 years old,
Okay.
and I was living somewhere else, but I think it was an apartment, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I set up this stuff in a little area of the garage, so I would go there when I could and fiddle with it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at this point, it was just a hobby, right?
Yeah, it was just learning the ropes, teaching myself how to do things. Yeah.
When did it become more than a hobby?
About 2003, 2004, I went full time, head first.
Never looked back.
Never looked back. And from 94 to then, I was building and making knives. And there was Oregon trade shows. There was a big one in Eugene here.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough. I have been going there for years to look at stuff, but now I had table and was trying to sell my wares. And the very first knives I had, I could not sell. There was this one gentleman I knew, and he would not buy them because they weren't very good, he said. So,
oh, wow.
Which is funny because many years later, he wanted to order knives from me, and I told him no.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
I mean, did he just say, I'm not going to buy them because they suck? Or did he at least give you a little bit of good feedback?
No, he just told me, I don't think they'll sell. I can't sell these.
Wow.
What an asshat.
Yeah.
Short-sighted on his part.
There you go.
But I'm sure they were terrible. But it's funny how things like that happen. Perseverance, right?
Right. I got to start somewhere. I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah, nothing's. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
How did you transition from you're in your folks' garage, just experimenting basically, right? Reading, trying to self-teach, figure things out as you go. How did you what was the next step from there? And
what was the catalyst?
Yeah, do you just do it for a while and realize, someone might actually buy this? That's kind of cool.
Well, let me ask this.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I saw your work was in an issue of Blade magazine, and this was well before you went full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a full-page, full-color ad.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that? Because that's a bold move, man.
That's
your
pretty
first
cool.
Advertisement in the magazine, full-page, full-color, that ain't cheap.
Yeah, the Argonaut, right?
Yeah, with the shoulder rig. You know what I'm talking about. You're the one who paid for it, right?
I sure did. And, that was a
No
lot of money.
shit.
It still is.
Right?
Yeah, hell yeah. I remember seeing it. And I always went through Blade magazine with a fine-tooth comb. And I saw that ad and I was like, well, who the hell is this? Oh my God, look at that knife. That's fucking excellent. Who the hell is this?
Yeah, well, I got better over time, and I wanted to become a full-time maker earlier. I just had this drive, and I didn't want to work for somebody else, and I thought it sucked. And but I couldn't quite get there. I didn't have the customer base yet to keep me financially afloat or anything.
Right.
So I had to get a job. I had a few jobs, but I got a job at a gun shop, and that the hours allowed me to work at the gun shop and make knives and continue to get better. And I got married at that time and bought a house and was able to set up my own dealio in the garage. And so things just kept it growing and enhancing while I was working for someone. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were doing, when was the first show that you took knives to?
Well, I was making knives, and I think it took it to the Oregon show in Eugene.
Okay.
And I had a table, and I had a very positive response. And boy, at the early days of that show, it was a great show. Aaron Fredericks was often next to me. He's a really cool guy, and
Yep.
he gave me a lot of pointers and tips. And Chris Reeve used to show up at the show. Ken Onion used to show up at the show, and it was a cool show, and I learned so much from people. So it just kept growing like that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about this industry at this particular point in time. Last 20 years, it seems like everybody is very willing to help and share. And I think that comes out of the forums. And I'm assuming you were on the forums early.
No, I was a late adopter to the forums, really. Yeah, there was Chris Reeve gave me some incredible advice. He really positive, and I liked what I was doing, and this advice that I still use today. So yeah, it was just a neat time.
Chris is a good dude.
Yeah,
love the Reeves family.
So the when you were going to the shows, it sounds like you're getting a little mentorship as part of that deal. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at least feedback wise, and people trying to help point you in a direction, or
these guys are. I was meeting my heroes, that I read about, and it strived to be like. So I got a lot of exposure from the shows, and it just kind of kept coming up with neat designs and trying to execute them as best as I could. The jumping point to a full-time maker was Patrick from Tad Gear at the time. He had liked what I was doing, and he was at the show, and he bought a few knives. He later placed an order for a batch of 12, I think, knives or something. And that was, at that time, that was a big deal for me. And it's like, boy, I think I can make this work. So that's when I quit the gun shop and went full-time knife making, is because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
This Blade magazine ad that Sean talked about, that was before that. Is that right? Or around that same time? Or
yeah, I was making the Argonaut, and I really needed to go big. So I needed to make a splash, and apparently it did.
Dude,
so
it totally did.
So that was all part of like, okay, I got to step this up, and I'm going to lay out some steps to try to make that happen. And that was one of the big pieces, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was really trying to make a push for it, because that's what I wanted to do at that time. It was an experiment, and I thought, well, I have nothing to lose, and
aside from the money,
the money, and I think it was a full page. I think is that right? I can't remember, but
I think that's what Sean said. Yeah.
Yeah, full page, full color. That was
the color? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, dude, it was full color. I remember. Like I said, it stood out.
That's awesome. It's funny because, in the age of social media, that isn't so much a front of mind thing for people, I don't think. You know what I mean? To make that big splash kind of deal. But at that time, there was a lot less of any of this stuff, right? So maybe that's the swing for the fences move.
Boy, there was no internet at all, so everything was through print. So everything I took pictures and submitted them to magazines for hopefully they'd get printed. It was just like that. It was a process to do. But boy, that was a lot of work. But apparently, it's paid off a little bit. So yeah,
right. Can we ask what the Chris Reeve advice was, or is that privileged information?
The one thing that sticks out to me is the choil in front of the cutting edge.
Yeah,
he told me to always slant it forward so it doesn't hang up on materials while you're cutting.
Yeah. Nice.
It's pretty basic, but at the time I wasn't doing that. He noticed it right away and told me to do that. It's like since then I've always done that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to turn down advice from people like that.
It's hard to do. Yeah. There used to be at the Oregon show. There used to be a grind off, and they would have different guys seeing how good they can grind. And Chris would always grind on the contest, and his knives were always fantastic.
Yeah,
the grind and under stress, it's pretty amazing.
Was it a how fast or?
I think it was a time thing. You know, he had a few minutes or how long to grind a blade of a certain size out, and then somebody would judge it to see how good it was.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, that's your kind of contest. You should get that going at Blade.
It'd be fun.
The Blade Show grind off.
I'm old now, though. My hands can't do that like I used to be able to.
Dude, but you could be the ringleader. You could be the guy up there running the show or judging the work.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
If you can't win.
That's right. That's right. The Crine Blade Show Uber grind off. I like that.
It'd be fun. Be a lot of fun.
So, okay, so you get this Blade magazine mega ad going, you get the Tad Gear deal in place. You're like, I got this. Let's go. And you had production stuff. Was that in the mix in that same time frame as well? Or when did your production collab stuff start happening?
Well, it didn't happen until a few years after I went full time.
Okay.
But the ad thing really helped kick things off. But you know, being there's no internet, it's just hard to know how much effectiveness it had.
Yeah, right.
Right, because people would write you letters, and you get your letters in the mail. So it was just a different time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so it was a lot more difficult.
For a print catalog, right?
Yeah, it was a lot more difficult to get the word out, unlike today. Yeah.
How did you, or what was the realization that it was doing something? Seeing more interest at shows, or more letters rolling in, or both, or what?
Both, yeah. Yeah, I was able to move a lot of knives at shows, which was very fortunate, and it just kept growing from there.
So what's next on the timeline? Is there stuff you want to talk about in between the throwing the big ad out there and then making the jump with the Tad deal to go full time?
Yeah, there was I went full time, and that was one of the scariest things I've ever done, because you go from stability, getting a paycheck every week, to health insurance, all that good stuff, to waking up the next day and there's no net underneath you.
Right.
And it's all you. So yeah, it was very scary, and there still is many nights where you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big leap. And so the greatest way to succeed is to have that hunger.
Yeah.
And keep pushing. And that's helped me, quite a bit. And so I did a few things with Tops after that. It was more of, handshake deal.
Yeah.
And we did a few things. But it wasn't really until about 2009 when things really took off for a collaboration with Benchmade. I was doing Blade Show West, and I just won an award for the Pocket Rocket. And Wes was there from Benchmade, Les Diasis.
Yep.
And he was there, and he came by and he saw my knives, and thought we should do something. So that was really neat. But I have to say, before all that happened, when I was 18, 19, I was fortunate to have Benchmade right down the street from my house.
Oh, wow.
Not down the street, but in the vicinity.
Yeah.
In an industrial area. And I would go over there in the afternoons and hang out.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And
because they have a showroom in there, right?
They had a little lobby. It's a shop, I would say. I'd call it a shop today. And Les was there running around, and the big influential thing for me was going there as a kid. 18, 19, 20, 21, I would go there and hang out. And so I got to know the guys. And I was a shop monkey hanging around.
Yeah.
And which was really influential to me is Jody Sampson was there grinding Weehawks.
Oh,
right?
man.
And Jody looks like a biker, or he did look like a biker.
Right.
Long hair.
Yeah.
You know, and the shop was dark. And I was fortunate enough to watch Jody grind, and he would grind a palette of Valley songs and smoking a cigar with no mask on.
Right.
Yeah. So it was neat. So
That's not how you do it?
And that's probably not how you do it. It's frowned upon.
It's crazy that it was dark.
It was, he had lamps and stuff, but it was, boy, it's not like what you think today. It's a shop.
Right.
So, yeah. But they had big machines there, and they had a lot of people there, and Les was walking around doing his thing. And it's when I had hair. And so he always saw me there, and so I would always get cool new knives that they would be making. And I remember the time when they started experimenting with Kydex when it was a new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was neat to see. Jody Sampson was a big influence on me. He would always have his workbench in the back, and he'd be grinding his Valley songs, but he really was passionate about swords.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see. He showed me one time would have cast wax and various different odds and ends of the swords from Conan the Barbarian on his table. So the impetus of all those swords is like scattered around his workbench.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I know when you said that, Sean had this vision in his head of him walking into a shop where Jody Sampson is grinding a sword.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for real.
Boom, falling over.
I was just thinking, I'm more than a little jealous right now.
No doubt.
Yeah, he would grind a lot of those sword, and I would watch him grind, and he would grind. It was just, and I remember him telling me that you move your body and not your hands when he's grinding those big swords. It was like a dance on the grinder. And it was quite the cool thing to experience and to see him design a few things when I was there. And I had him make me a few custom knives back in the day.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite the time. If you're in the knife world, that was big time for me to see.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, pretty much a pinnacle experience, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to a lot of that. So when I won that award in 2009, and Les was there, he remembered me from all those years ago, and we caught up, and that was it's kind of like it came full circle.
That's really cool.
That is super cool.
So yeah, that was a big influence.
So you ended up in how many designs did you have with Benchmade over the years? And you still do, right?
Yeah. Geez, I don't know how many. Boy, that's a good question. I don't really know how many actual individual designs there are. I know there's the MPR, the 757 Vicar, they have the Bushcrafter, the Adamus line, a couple fixed blades. Yeah.
Right.
The Arvensis. Yeah, there's quite a few, I guess.
There's a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
One of the things that you have going that most great makers do is design language that I think is safe to say is very identifiable, right? We talk about it a lot on the show about how people have knives and designs, and there's a lot of stuff out there that all just kind of runs together. And then there are makers who you can see their stuff, and if even without a logo, you'd say, oh, yeah, that's one of Shane's knives. It sure looks like it anyway, right? Like there's specific stuff, whether it's shapes or style or, in your case, just the super clean work and really clean designs as well. And is that something that you just kind of found your way into as you went along? did you have, I mean, it seems like some of it kind of comes with, some of these iconic fixed blade designs, right? And it looks a lot like that stuff in many cases kind of fell over into how your folders look. But you want to talk a little bit about design language and what it means for you and kind of how you found your way to where you are?
Yeah, I don't know if I actually had a specific goal in mind, but I didn't have a mentor to actually show me the way type of deal. And so I was able to, I guess, develop my own style. And I had influences, like Jody, and then Jim Hammonds was a big influence on me. And then his design language is, I like the knives that are like purely made for a specific purpose. Has always caught my attention.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just kind of flowed. I don't really have a specific way of the way I did it. Yeah.
Just kind of evolved over time.
It just developed my own style, I guess. It's a merging of various traits. Yeah.
So when you design, are you sitting down with a piece of paper and a pencil, or
I am?
How do you design? Yeah.
Yeah. I have the direction I want to go in my head, and I just build off my existing designs, merging things, changing things.
So when you design, do you have a purpose in mind when you sit down, or do you just sit down and start free flow drawing? Or like Ken Onion, he'll create a scenario, I believe is what he's told me, where he's in Mars or whatever, and he pictures that kind of the scenario.
Sometimes I guess like I like to do a lot of backpacking, outdoor stuff. I guess I kind of do that a little bit. Sometimes it's just merely to see if I can do it.
Right.
So I take influences from, like I like making the big Bowies sometimes, and taking influences from the early days of watching all those movies.
Well, for sure, I can see the 90s influence.
But then I like adding a modern spin on it with materials and different techniques to make it stand out more so. Try to make it stand out with the limited amount of machinery and things I have, I guess.
Yeah, it's always fun. So for me, I tend to design around my tools and like, I know what I can and can't do on my tools. And I also kind of think use. I'm very like, I'm going to backpack. What do I want to take for this backpack trip type thing? Right. Or I'm going deer hunting.
Right.
But sometimes it's kind of fun to sit down and design stuff that you can't make on your tools, and sometimes try to push yourself and your tools and see where you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. I like doing those one-off pieces or what have you that are just the pieces that's just to see if I can do it. I have this thing in my head and see if I can make it materialize. But my standard models, I think, like the Bushcrafter, I think it pretty much came from something I would want to use in the Northwest. And that's why it's got a non-traditional stainless steel blade and titanium fittings and D10 or carbon fiber handles, because I live in a very rainy part of the country. And so it's good to have modern materials and something like that.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So I guess I design things kind of in that way.
I think one of my favorite designs that you do is a Cascade Bushcrafter.
Oh yeah.
And that's, I love that model. You've got one on your Instagram that's like got some vintage canvas.
Yeah.
Really, really looks good on that model.
Yeah, I like making the Bushcrafter, and I think it's just such a practical knife. It's not too big. It's fun to make. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. Now, they're talking about your Instagram. There is a piece on your Instagram, and it doesn't have a name. It's a prototype.
Okay.
And you described it as being short, stout, and wide.
Oh, boy. Is it black with a black finish?
No, it's satin. Let's see, when did you post it? February 3 of 2021, it looks like.
Boy.
It's got a carbon fiber handle. I love it. It looks very almost Randall 19-ish to me, that blade shape. And I don't know if you ever made any more of those, but that is a super cool piece.
This is Tom's roundabout way of trying to place an order.
Get in line, pal.
You'll have to send me a picture of it. I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he can tell you he's not taking orders.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Dear Mr. Crine, thank you for your correspondence. I'm not accepting orders for that model at this time. That's the way I'd lead with it.
Hey, I never said your stuff wasn't going to sell. I've always believed it from the start.
Tom doesn't want to be blacklisted. We got it. We got it. Yeah, too funny.
I also really like the Pocket Rocket Stormtrooper version. That's really
Oh, yeah. That was
really
that
sick
guy got a lot of
piece.
attention. That was pretty cool.
Hell yeah, it did. It's badass. That blade shape and color. Yeah. I don't know how you did white G10. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's nasty to work with, isn't it?
I don't know how you kept it white. It's miraculous. But anyway, sorry, I diverged.
Tom was in your Instagram just scrolling.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do that regularly. But
We usually we do a little homework going and looking at stuff and have some pieces to talk about. I think Tom was kind of heading down this path a little bit earlier, but when you sit down to do design stuff, Shane, this is like pencil or pen on paper kind of stuff, or do you do stuff on the computer, or are you really a analog kind of guy? You're sitting down drawing out by hand.
Yeah, I draw it all by hand.
Yeah.
Everything.
Me
And then
too.
you do the cutouts and the transfer and
Yep.
to cardboard or what have you, and then to aluminum, and then start again when it doesn't work out. So, I'll scrap this idea.
So that's exactly what I've done. I've got a CNC mill and I can't do fusion. So I don't know if you guys, this is going to be a free ad for TJ. TJ Schwartz is starting an online class for Fusion 360. And I am actually looking at MacBook Pros right now, and I'm going to sign up for that because it's time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I design exactly like you. Sit down with a pencil and maybe a French curve and a big eraser.
Yeah. You can go to it and see if you can get what's in your head on paper.
Sometimes it's not as easy as it would seem. I don't know about you, but creativity, it's weird for me, and I don't know about you either, Sean, but like it's hit or miss. Like I may have a design in my head for a while, and if I sit down, sometimes I can sit down and everything I draw I like, and sometimes I can't draw a line, much less anything I like. So it's when it does hit, I sit down and just sketch for a couple hours.
Yeah. I think it's harder now than when I was younger to put things on paper. I guess because I've become more practical. I've become more pragmatic with my designs instead of outlandish, I guess.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm the same. I'm my own worst enemy. Like, there's stuff that, probably 20 years ago, I would have just sketched out and spent 3 hours on. And now just the thought of it, I'm like, I don't need to put that on paper.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it seems hard also because it's like we already have designs that work. And so oftentimes I find myself making what I know I can already make. And it seems to be harder to find time to design. And that's a problem for me personally.
Well, man, not just time to design, but then time to prototype that design also.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's you can draw up a bunch of stuff, but the thing is, you got to do it repetitively when you're making it.
Yeah.
And do you want to make this over and over and over again? That's why I do like making one-offs that they're just kind of on the wild side. But everyday stuff that, you need to make and move to make a living, that's consistent, repeatable. That's kind of a bread and butter type knives.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, a couple times I've gone to Michael's shop, we'll have grab a couple beers and get out the sketchbooks, and he's like, yeah, man, let's draw something up. Let's make something. So we start drawing, and inevitably
4 days later,
it's a tangent. It's a birch tree tangent. It's like, shit. Somehow we end up back in the same place, or at least a very close cousin to it. And kind of to your practicality comment, Shane, one of the things we've talked about before here is I'm really interested in, and we see it already in some younger knife designers, people that come at stuff who in some cases have never actually made a knife. You know what I mean? Designers that are not knife makers, they don't have those same constraints. And sometimes the results are really cool, right? They're really interesting. They might be hard to make, or they might not be, right? There's some very creative people out there in the manufacturing world, but I think a lot of times that's really interesting to see, even just from a design perspective, right? Like somebody who isn't thinking, oh yeah, I got to put a pivot here, and I got to put a detent ball and a folder, and I got to, you know what I mean? If you're not bound the same way by those constraints, and you got to sort it out as part of the design later, sometimes you can find some magic in there. Sometimes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the computer-aided design really helps. I think.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, drawing it all out, I got to figure out, well, how am I going to do this here?
Yeah. Right.
And so
right.
These are all little sticking points along the way.
Yep.
And all those sticking points is just more time invested in the piece when you're making it. And it's just, boy, it can blossom pretty quickly. When you start working with filing titanium and all this stuff and doing a lot of milling, it eats a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Michael were here, he would jump in at this point and say, yeah, I like doing lots of cool, crazy stuff that takes me weeks and weeks to do. And I'm not making a dime, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's an actual problem.
Yeah.
Because you can go down the rabbit hole pretty deep, pretty far.
Well, that's where, you got to have the passion if you really to strive and be invested and really like what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's where that comes in. Yeah.
So Sean just sent me an Instagram message, and the name of the knife I like is called the Outlander.
Yeah.
Really cool piece.
Yeah. I made, I think I've made 2 of those so far.
Yeah, there's 2. Yeah. Well, one thing that you mentioned early on was you had simple tools, and I've seen your work, and I think all of us kind of geek out over each other's shops and tools, and it's cool to kind of have a feel of what you're working with. Can you walk us kind of through your shop? What's your shop look like? Is it in your garage?
It is. It's in my garage. It doesn't take up my full garage even. so
like
tiny.
one stall.
I have a bench, table, work table. I've got another table set up with my heat treat system. I've got a mill that I bought, I think back in 2005 or 6 that I still use.
What kind of mill is it?
It's just a small tabletop type mill.
Oh, yeah.
My grinder is a Wilton square wheel grinder, and it's the first real grinder I ever bought, and it's this grinder I still use today. It's the only one I have.
Wow.
So it's 30 years old, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
running like 11 billion RPMs.
Well, it's got I got a reducer on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because man,
I grind
those things
slow.
ass.
Yeah.
That came up today. I grind relatively slow and higher pressure. I like that.
Yeah. That's kind of what I do. I mean, I crank it up when I'm hogging out,
Hand
profiling
material.
and that type of thing. But when the finer stuff, I slow it all the way almost to a stop. And so I got the Wilton, and it's been a heck of a machine. I've had to,
Cry once.
patch it together a few times, but it's still going.
Yeah.
And I got a buffer. I've got a 2 drill presses, and one standing and one that's on a little table I use for my Tapmatic. But yeah, it's pretty basic, and it's all sandpaper and files and hand tools.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought Tom was going to say, so you have shop in your garage and I've seen your work and I don't buy it.
No. I buy it 100% and I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and I assume you've got a saw of some kind.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have one of those, you probably see them, those saws that stand up vertical or it can go down.
Mm-hmm.
One of those, that's still going. I've had that since the beginning of time also. Yeah.
And do you have a blast cabinet?
Oh, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So
The blast cabinet.
and you just put a lot of elbow grease in and sandpaper and files and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
That's insane. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, I love seeing, and I love seeing stuff like this come out of small shops. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
man.
It's
inspiration.
Wolfgang Lorchner. He's doing file and sandpaper stuff that is unbelievable, and I assume you don't think about adding like a new grinder just because of space. It sounds like space is at a premium.
Boy, I would really dig one of those hardcore grinders or something like that. They're just amazing. But I don't have. I don't have really the space to do it. Or if my Wilton goes out, I guess I could put it in that space. But
it seems like maybe one of the new grinders with the attachments that you can lay over and use as a horizontal would be
that'd be cool.
something you might look into. Or, I mean, obviously what you're doing works, so why change it? But I utilize what I have to its fullest capacity, and finding new ways to do things, working with things that I have at my disposal. So it's a full-time gig, man. It's trying to pump out the knives for sure.
Yeah.
Just,
it almost
just out of curiosity, how many does that look like a week? Just curious.
Oh boy.
Ballpark. And if you don't want to say, that's fine also.
I honestly don't keep track of that. I mean, a fixed blade, a simpler style fixed blade like a bushcrafter with no guards or anything, I can have it ready for heat treat within a day.
Yeah.
But then fixing the handle, so probably 2 or 3 days to get one bushcrafter completed after heat treat and all that time.
Do you prefer to work in batches or one at a time?
I like 1 or 2 at a time because I can focus on one piece,
right,
and follow it all the way through. That's what I really enjoy doing is one piece at a time. I have done batches and it's fine. It just seems like it takes quite a while to get them all completed.
It's interesting hearing the different perspectives from different makers, right? Some people want to do things in batches or in some kind of scale, but it's for some people it's a total drag, right? Like, this is awful, right? I don't want to do 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like it gets boring doing that step over and over again on a bunch of knives. And other people, I think in many cases, people that came from a machining background, right, or from a manufacturing or a shop background are like, what? You're doing one nose to tail. You're crazy, right? That's the most inefficient way to do it ever.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really interesting to hear the different perspectives from people.
Well, it absolutely is inefficient, but
just
what I just strangely prefer. And I mean, it could take me it takes me probably a week and a half, maybe to 2 weeks to get a folder together.
Yeah.
From start to finish, if I was just to focus on one. A lot of the issue is I'm just not making knives, right? I'm doing life things. So everything else, getting supplies, ordering supplies, running out to get this or that. So there's a lot of time where I'm not making knives.
Right.
That life things kind of,
Yeah.
So it takes a while to get things finished sometimes.
Do you also have a lathe of some type?
No, I don't have a lathe.
Wow. Because I've seen looks like red G10 like pivot collars.
Yeah. No, I don't have a lathe. I would really enjoy a surface grinder in my life, but I don't have the room for it. The pivot collar accents, I grind them all. I grind each and every one of those circles on my grinder, all by eye. Well, I scribe it, but then I grind the scribe line. Yeah, I don't have a lathe, so it's all done by that way. Every single one of them. Every single pivot accent I've ever done is me grinding it little circles.
Okay, so we need to have an intervention right now.
Yeah.
There's
Tom,
things you
get
can
in the
do on your
van, start
grinder.
driving.
So that you can get like a spin jig that has like a you know what I'm talking about, Sean?
Yeah.
Like we used to do these for Dozier and basically we would do it on the mill, but it's basically a spin jig. You take a square and put your through hole, and a lot of them, I don't know what the word is. I can look it up, but basically you could mount that on your grinder and just spin it and move it in, and it would. I think that would really help you as far as I can't imagine how long that takes and how frustrating that would be.
You got to have quite a bit of patience.
Right.
No,
but I mean, it
a
looks
way of handling
awesome.
Anxiety.
but hot damn, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not a very expensive tool. I'll look it up and send you a link.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, there's a whole world of things that I'm unaware of in the tool world. I'm not really a tool junkie like a lot of some knife makers are.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So I mean, when I hear about things like this, it's like, oh, cool.
I mean, you could probably get one that, I don't know if you've got a benchtop. I've got benchtop mills. That's pretty much all I've ever used manually. I don't know if it'll fit under there, but basically we used a 1/4 inch cutter and just spun it, and we mic them to within 1/1000th of an inch. And, basically you cut your pocket with a counterbore, and then these would drop in. Mm-hmm. Or whether we would cut them so they would press in. These were on the fixed blades I was doing for Dozier.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question.
Damn.
It almost sounds like, this might be crazy, but there's some degree of, like you said, exercising an extreme level of patience to do this in an incredibly manual, like the hard way to do it, right? Is there a part of that for you, Shane, that's like a peace thing? Like it's okay that it's hard to do? It clearly hasn't boiled over to the point of like, okay, screw this. I'm never doing another pivot collar until I have a better solution. So that makes me wonder if there's more to it, right? Where, like sometimes people will say, certain people on this recording today, who is very recently talking, hate hand rubbing, right? Like, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world. Yeah. Other people, it's like, that's the Zen moment for them, right? They're like, they're in it and they're, you know what I mean? In some cases zoned out, or in some cases super focused or whatever, but it's almost like a happy place for them to do that kind of stuff. Is there a part of that that's in this thing for you? Like, is it like, I just like doing this stuff and I don't mind it, or?
Well, I think a part of it's that necessity.
Yeah.
just learning. You've got to adapt and learn to work with what you have.
Right.
Being that you just got to figure things out.
Right.
With what you have, and there's just sometimes no other way around it until somebody brings up, oh, there's an easier way to do this, or there's this machine for this or that. So yeah, and yeah, I guess some of it can be therapeutic. I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and maybe that's not a thing. It's an
It's
interest.
not, Mark.
Okay. I mean, I know people that are like computer coders, right? That would make me go, I would go crazy doing that. But there's people who like, boom, put some music in their ears and they're in this like flow state thing and it's rewarding to them, right? Like
it's a focus. Yeah. It's intense focus that you got to have sometimes to do these things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get that. But at the end of the day, we still got to, we're making a living here.
Yeah.
Mark. And honestly, I don't know about you, but my hands, like I used to do some hand rub stuff. I didn't ever really enjoy it, but my hands, they just don't hold up to that anymore, really.
Yeah.
Like I'm already having arthritic type issues in my thumbs and some of my fingers and stuff. So
yeah, that's the thing. I think there's an expiration date for this because you just can't. It's very well the way I do it. It's abusive to your body because there's a lot of hand filing at titanium is never fun. Fitting guards and hand grinding the blades and materials like MagnaCut. That's not very fun to grind. It's so hard.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why everybody's running MagnaCut so damn hard.
Yeah.
No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
Like I don't get it. One, it's almost impossible to work, and two, it's almost impossible for the customer to sharpen.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, yeah, it cuts forever, but yeah, you can't sharpen it unless you have diamonds in the field or something, and it's going to be hard.
Do you find that when you get it sharp, it takes a really keen edge in my experience?
Yeah. I mean, I'm putting it in at 60 to 61, and I'm finding it works pretty good, and it's relatively easy to work with and sharpen, and I don't know. I don't see I know people putting it in at 64, and just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that you should do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my take. I don't know. I think it's a great steel, but I don't feel the need to run it that hard.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my opinion. That and 50 cents will get you at nothing.
Not even a candy bar anymore.
Dude. Well, I was at the truck stop. We traveled out to Kentucky, and those little nerd balls, the gummy nerds, they're so good. They're $10. A bag of those was $10.
Oh my God.
I was like, they still got them. I'm not paying $10. But I sent
candy junkie.
I am big time.
Man.
I sent you a message on Instagram, Shane.
Okay.
Grizzly has one. It's like $100, and that is a little spin jig, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You should, I think that would help you out.
Yeah.
I mean, not obviously what you're doing is kick ass and works and it's beautiful, but I don't know how you do that, man. That's bad.
Yeah. It's nice to have that advice. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Tom's like,
nice to have some skills.
I worry about you, man.
Yeah. Sorry, man. I'm getting in your business and I shouldn't.
Too funny. Too funny.
I love your work, and I love that you're doing it out of a small shop, because anybody that's listening, they want to do this, you don't have to have a huge shop. You just have to have the want.
It's funny because I guess I've been called a purist, and it's interesting because the people that I admired when I was a young kid, knife makers, you'd always see pictures of them in a dark shop and just files and simple things. I guess that stuck with me, and to me, that's kind of like, that's a handmade knife, and I always like that idea. So yeah, I guess there's some of that in there, some idealism. Yeah.
Yeah.
The old timers,
I got a lot of light in my shop.
Yeah.
As I get older, I get more.
Exactly.
It sucks, but in the last 10 years, I've had to start wearing glasses. And so now I've got glasses just for the grinder, the distance between my eyes to the wheel, and all sorts of crap.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But, yeah, that's really cool. Deep dive. Thank you for kind of sharing that and walking us through your shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. The work coming out of a shop set up that way is absolutely amazing. I mean,
thank you.
And I know that you have to make money and whatever, but again, I think that whole, I'm with Tom. The idea that the stuff that you are making and that we see, is as hand intensive as it is, and as super crispy, crazy clean as it is just super, super cool.
Yeah.
And, could you do that stuff more easily with a bunch more equipment and a bunch more space and a bunch more technology? Sure. It would also be different in the end, I think. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well,
That goes to the whole thing about,
well, if somebody was like, "Hey, did you know Shane's grinding those pivot collars?" I would have been like, "No, that's BS, dude."
right. That's why I said earlier, I don't buy it. That's where Tom was going.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
But I'm often embarrassed to have people over that want to see my shop. It's like, there's nothing there, man. They think it's some grand thing with these incredible robots. It's like, no.
Right.
No, it's at the end of your arms and between your shoulders. It's like,
Right.
It's heart, mind, and hands coming together. And that, to me, that's one of the most beautiful things about a craftsman. It's like
Right.
the tools help you, but they're not the real tool. That's not really how things are being made. Because oftentimes people are like, well, if I had those tools, I could do it also.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, I call BS on that,
Right.
It's not the tools. And I don't know that it's ever been more clear in one of our interviews than at this one.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not knocking your shop. It sounds like you've got the tools you need, but the tools are your hands and what you can do with them. And that's as we get older, that's kind of sucks because
yeah.
I don't know about you, but my body is not. I should have been gentler on it. I definitely have used it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the way Shane described it was really good, right? Absolutely extracting everything possible out of that set of tools and equipment that he has, right? And kind of hearing what that is and seeing the work, it's like, yep. Well, you're probably getting way more out of it than a lot of other people could, right? Just
and what's crazy too is the materials you like to use, and that's like one of the places we want to go next is the materials that your favorite materials and what you like to use, and then you look at the tools you're using, also files and sandpaper. You're like, yeah, no fun. So yeah, let's talk about some of those materials you like.
Yeah, I don't like working with them per se, but I like the end result. I like titanium. I like the high grade stainless steels like S90, and I like the S30 quite a bit. MagnaCut is fine. I like a lot of modern materials. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of tools and blade steel, I did see you got a new heat treat oven. No.
Yeah, that's a recent thing. I was having it done. Unfortunately, the people that were doing it for me it didn't go very well last time. So I decided, well, I need to take this into my own hands. And with the help of Billy Cho, he helped me.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
He set me straight on the heat treat dealio, and now I have a heat treat oven, and yeah, thanks to him. But it was one of the best things I've done because you really need to take control of that.
It's kind of funny, right?
For me,
like several of us have been down this path, and I recently brought all my heat treat into the shop, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. Literally the last time I had and fixed blades, let's be honest, fixed blades don't have to be perfectly flat, right? They got to be close. Mm-hmm. The last batch I got, it was like 7 or 8 inch fixed blades, and you push down on the butt and they'd be like a half inch up at the tip. And I'm like, that shit don't work.
Yeah. It's nice to have that under your control. And for me, the way I make knives, so making them 1 and 2 at a time, I can actually be quicker. Right. So before I would have batches, because they charge you, a set fee for if you have 1 or 20.
Right, for a run, basically.
Yeah, so I would want as many knives as possible. So it would take me quite a while to get a batch of 15 knives together for heat treat, and then it takes a week or so to get it done and get it back and then finish them all up. So actually now it's quicker for me.
Oh yeah, it works very well with your method.
Yeah, and you learn a lot doing it. It's kind of fun experimenting with different steels and trying new things. And so yeah, it's been good.
I'm going to look to Sean for ruling on this one. Is that the first time we've had someone say thanks to Billy Cho?
Quite possibly. Unless it was like, thank goodness he's not around.
Well, that's Luke Swenson would say that, but yeah. Oh,
geez.
Look at Billy Cho getting the shout out.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So
he is a good guy.
He's pretty close to you,
okay guy.
Yeah, we're almost neighbors.
That's crazy. 2 very talented makers right next to each other.
Okay, very passable maker and a very talented maker.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
A very serviceable maker and an excellent maker. Let's just leave it at that.
We love you, Billy.
Well, he saved my bacon on those on that batch that went sour. So yeah, since then it's we've had a good time.
So have you seen the carbide tipped straightening hammers?
Yeah, I actually made one and it works fantastic.
They're pretty badass, right?
It's like amazing how it works. It's like magic.
It just, yeah. Yeah, I bought one from Kyle Daly, and I saved all those ones from the last batch that were so crooked. I saved all of them.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works, huh?
It's pretty amazing.
Wasn't Birch a skeptic, or it sounded skeptical when you were describing it the first time we talked about it on the show?
Well, I was skeptical, and I bought one, and I was like,
maybe that's
see
what
if this
it was.
Works.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works great. And then I make a lot of lighter taps, like a lot. And yeah, it just cleans right off. No problem. Mm-hmm. And it straightens it great.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
So yeah, props to Kyle.
So titanium, you obviously use lots of carbon fiber. Shane is clearly a fan of red and orange. A lot of red and orange in your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I like adding touches of vibrant colors. It seems to grab people's attention in photos. Yeah. And it boy, there's so much that's gray and black. It's nice to have a little pop of color here and there.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the knives that I saw you do that I really liked was a gray knife, actually, with blue. Mm. And that blue accents were just like, whew, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like those accents. They're fun to do, and it just makes them pop a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know you do a lot of hand sanding, a lot of file work. What are some of your favorite things to do as far as knife making?
And put them in the package, ship them out.
that is the truth. And then you can get paid.
Yeah.
It's, when you're sometimes, I mean, yeah, it's evolved over the years. Sometimes it's work, it's a job. Other times, when you want to embark on a new knife or design, you really want to dig into it. It's like you feel that zest,
Right. Yeah, I don't know if it was like grinding the blade or shaping the handles or.
Grinding the blade still causes me anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like the heart of the knife, and if you can't, nail that, then it's kind of, in my mind, it's off.
Looks like mostly you're hollow grinding. Is that right?
Yeah. I use an 8-inch wheel on most of my stuff.
But you can't use that on those big knives.
I do.
I hate it when people tell me that.
Yeah, no, I do. I absolutely do.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, you've seen the little chart. If you got a 5-inch wheel, you can grind this high on a blade.
Yeah.
That's
well,
false information.
I've got a 10-inch wheel, but I've never liked using it. I'm just dialed into that 8-inch wheel, I guess.
What makes it easy to get into that hollow, get into the groove?
Tom's trying to welcome you to the get off my lawn part of the show.
Well, I mean, that I hate seeing that. I absolutely hate seeing that. And so many of the knife like supply places sell that kind of that chart thing. And it's like, yeah, don't tell me what I can and can't do. Nobody told Jerry Hossam what he could do. That dude grinds on, I think, a 5-inch wheel.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. Frustrating.
So maybe the spark at the beginning sounds like kind of your maybe the best thing, aside from finishing it up and saying, okay, there it is.
Yeah, it's grinding, giving the knife life, I think, in my head is making the hollow grinds. Was always fun. It's, boy, I don't have any one particular thing that I super enjoy that really stands out. There's plenty of things I dislike, but
how about hand rubbing? You like that?
Yeah, that's, boy.
No, Mark.
It's tough because I like the end result, but I don't like actually. I don't look forward to doing it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it definitely is beautiful.
Yeah. So it's always neat. Some knives, I'm sure you're aware of, but when you're making them, they cause you a lot of grief. But when you actually see those knives, like a few years later or what have you, somebody brings it in or something that shows you, or you see, it's like, wow, that turned out really good.
Right.
But when you're building it, you don't think that.
Yeah. I saw one of your Instagram posts talked about a sword that you made back in 2015, which is gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah, that was an undertaking.
Yeah, and like, oh, it's really cool to see this, and holy cow.
Yeah, that was
gives you the shivers, like, oof.
Yeah, those little challenge pieces I do to myself sometimes. I don't know why I do it. It's like, man. I've got another piece I want to work on that it's been in my head for about 1.5 years or so, and I got on paper, and it's like, it's going to look really cool. I just can't quite, I got to be ready in my head to embark on the task.
Yeah.
Because it's such an undertaking.
Yeah. So what about show stuff? How many shows do you typically do in a year, Shane? It's not too many, right?
Boy, maybe 2 shows a year.
Okay.
It varies. It fluctuates. This year, it doesn't seem like I've done many shows. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So the Pacific Northwest show, Nick and Billy show.
Mm-hmm. I did that show.
That's one that sounds like you like. USN show, maybe. I know that one's been kind of up and down. It seems like a little bit.
Yeah, I enjoy that show. I like going to Vegas. I know
I
some
do
guys
too.
But you know what? I kind of dig it because it's not my garage.
Yeah, there you go.
Interacting with a lot of people, and it's like, oh, this is cool. This is fun, and you get to meet all the cool people. So I don't mind Vegas. I've never been to Blade. I get to asked that a lot if I've been to Blade, and I've never been to Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
I need to apparently someday go there. They tell me so.
Right.
It's a trip.
It is an experience.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the smaller blade shows they're doing now. So there's one in Utah, which would be close to you, Blade Show West. They're really good. Like the Blade Texas one, I get the vibe of Blade Show like in the 90s when I used to go.
Oh.
Like it's that.
Nice.
And it's
nice.
like Blade Show in Atlanta now is pretty overwhelming. I've got a booth and it seems like a lot of work, and I don't know. I love it. I'm never planning on not going.
Mm-hmm.
But Blade Texas is probably my favorite show out of all of them right now.
Okay.
Kentucky's fun. It's a good show, but Blade Texas is like, it's a big small show, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think Blade West is the same vibe.
Yeah. Blade West here when I was in Portland was kind of a cool little show, but is the Texas one, I would imagine it's fairly large, huh?
Yeah, it's grown every year. Since they've had it, I think this will be the 4th year they've done it. Yeah. And I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it in February this year. So time to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Shane, are you doing all your own photos and stuff for knives?
I do.
They're really good.
They are.
Oh, thank you. Well, back before the internet, I'm sure we all remember that. I had to take photos and submit them, and so, and I didn't have the money to send them off to have somebody take them pictures professionally. So it's like, well, it's up to me. So I did all the pictures and sent them in, and to this day, that's still what I do. I take all the pictures. I have a little light box, and I spend quite a bit of time trying to get those pictures, different angles, and try to mix it up. So
yeah, no, they're fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we started recording, I said, "Oh man, Shane's the king of doing this teaser pic thing." The first picture in his Instagram post is always some kind of cool close up partial view angle, like a teaser pic. And they're really, really nice. And it definitely makes you want to click and say, "Whoa, what am I looking at?"
Yeah, I guess that's kind of, you try to draw in your audience. By doing something like that, in my head at least. So I kind of enjoy taking pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a fine job of it, I gotta say. And the other thing, right? When people go to your Instagram, and I think you've mentioned this along the way, very much an outdoors guy, right? Exploring the outdoors, and looks like hiking and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a passion of yours.
Yeah. I've always hiked and backpacked since I was a kid. And so it's being in Oregon, that's just kind of what you do.
Yeah.
So, as I've gotten older, I've done less of it as work has consumed my life more and more. But boy, I sure like getting out and doing some lightweight backpacking. Yeah.
Beautiful place to do it.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's some spectacular mountains, and I particularly like going up to Mount St. Helens and hiking around the volcano. It's always fun.
Yeah.
So we did a trip out to Oregon when I was a kid, right after, maybe a year after the volcano went off.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember driving out there, and all the trees were still like, it just looked like somebody threw a box of matches out there,
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
The destruction was unbelievable.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective when you're around. There's a trail that goes around Mount St. Helens, and it puts you down in the base, and looking up through that where it erupted, it's makes you feel very small. A lot of power there.
There was, I think the first time my wife and I went to Hawaii, we spent some time on the Big Island.
Oh,
and
cool.
Over on the southwest is where the eruption stuff is kind of always at least slow motion happening, or usually slow motion happening, sometimes high speed happening. But you can So you can't circumnavigate the big island. There's like a section of it where the lava flows have come across the road. And so you can drive like a C shape, a backward C shape around the entire island. And so we went in from both directions, and it's really, really wild. Just like driving along a 2-lane road, a very nice paved 2-lane road. And then, that there's a lava flow that just absorbed the road and went right perpendicular to the road right across, and, basically cuts everything off. And we went out onto the lava fields a little bit, and it was really, like you said, Shane, very, I don't know, it's just weird to think about, right? Like, whoa.
Yeah.
this was all molten rock not that long ago. And in some cases underneath your feet at the moment that you're standing there, you know what I mean? Like below the surface. And I don't know, just very
kind of freaky.
Yeah. Freaky, but also very cool.
It's freaky because of the power that's involved, and it's daunting to think about. It's like, it puts things in perspective.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. On the one side of that lava flow, there's actually like a park there where you drive back, and the road used to go further in, and they ended up putting a parking lot, away from where the lava flow ended up going. And you basically get out of your car and walk what was the road to where the lava flow starts. And then you can hike around in the lava flow area. And it's just wild to see, right? Where it goes on for a huge distance. And I don't know. It was fascinating to me. I'd never experienced that before. So definitely cool.
Yeah, it's neat to see.
All right. Do we want to hit some fun questions, fellas?
Well, you mentioned movie knives earlier. What's your favorite movie knife, man?
Boy, I think it'd have to be the Abyss.
You should tell that story, because I don't know that all of our listeners know about that.
Well, and it's better to get it from the horse's mouth anyway.
That's right. How did that happen? And yeah,
it's kind of another one of those full circle things for me. The original Abyss knife was made by a knife maker, George Lanehart, and he was probably in his middle 20s when he made those knives. But I think it was in 2010 or so. A customer came to me and wanted me to make a replica.
Yeah.
And I've always been a super fan of that knife. I've got a picture of it in my shop, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I said, well, I can't. It's not my design. It's not my knife. I need to get a hold of George Lanehart, but he's gone. Nobody knows where he is. The customer was a movie replica fanatic. He liked props, that type of thing. So that was his thing, and he wanted that knife to have in his collection. I ended up finding an email, and I thought it was George Lanehart. wasn't sure, but I sent an email and no response. I sent another one, and I actually he responded, and it turns out he's no longer making knives, and he's back east. I think he's a SWAT team or something like that. Okay. And I explained to him the situation, and he said, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, you can make the Abyss knife. So I got his permission, and I replicated the knife from pictures. Later on, I actually acquired a sample that I still have.
That's cool.
Yeah, I actually have one of the originals, which is really, really neat.
That is cool.
You are a collector. I knew it.
So it's the neat thing about that knife is not many people knew or saw it, but it was so prominent in that Fighting Knives magazine. I remember seeing it.
Oh yeah,
and it was so crazy looking, and it was so specific. Everything on that knife was made for a purpose, and George told me those were actually really made for the Navy SEALs, and they used them. So anyway, I formed a kind of a friendship with George, and he sent me a bunch of movie memorabilia of the Abyss.
Oh, that's fun.
Cool.
He sent me his original drawings for the Abyss knife.
Wow.
So I have all the original hand sketches that he did. Like we sketch out knives today. He sent me all those. So I've got quite a few.
That's super cool.
Knives, and he did some knives for other movies like Nameless with Michael Biehn, and so I got some of those drawings. Yeah, and so he gave me his blessing to make the Abyss knife, and I reproduced it, and there it is. And I make the LS1, which is what my take on how I would made it if I was George back in the day, type of deal.
Yeah.
So, and then the LS1 stands for Lanehart Sibert.
Ah.
So I gave him a little bit of credit for the inspirations there. So yeah.
That's super cool.
So yeah, I got George's blessing to make those, and so on occasion I make one. Yeah.
Very awesome. Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it's such a striking knife, and it's fun to make, and I really enjoy making it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I think it's super cool that you were able to reach him, right? I mean, that's just a total shot in the dark, and boom, ends up responding, and you're able to work that out.
He doesn't usually respond, and I've heard from other people that they just can't get a hold of him. He just doesn't respond. So I was very fortunate that he contacted me and gave me his blessing, and he told me that I'm the only guy on the planet that's authorized to make the Abyss knife, which is, wow, really cool. And I actually made him an LS1 and sent it to him as a thank you.
Oh, that's cool.
And he says he puts it in his bug out bag.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So
that's excellent.
So I think he wants to get back into the knife game, but he's an officer and he's got a life. And so,
right.
But it's neat, the impact that he had the little time he was making knives.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Great story.
That's very cool. Well, and you end up with a friend out of the deal, and the movie stuff is really cool, right? That's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's neat. The knife, just knowing that the mindset of him when you made it, and what each part of the knife is so crazy looking, but each part of it has a specific purpose.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really dig that.
Be super cool to have like one of those glass top coffee tables with the drawer underneath and have like it all on display. I mean, that's like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like in your TV room or something. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
With the drawings and
with all the movie stuff he sent, the original drawings.
Nice.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, he said he made 7 for the movie and for James Cameron, and he stayed up for 2 or 3 days trying to get these done. I think I remember him saying he drank a bunch of coffee and was just trying to get them done because he needed to get them done right away, type of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how exactly he fell into getting him or got him into the movie to start with, but so it's kind of a cool story.
No, it would be interesting to know. That's exactly what I was going to ask. How did he get that deal? That would be a really curious thing to know.
Yeah, but there's so few of them out there of the original Laneharts.
Yeah.
And he said he double marked the blade, so no matter where the knife was being photographed from in the movie, that his name would be on it so you could see it.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Smart. Yeah. Very smart.
Yeah.
Love it.
But some of those iconic movie knives, stuff like that,
What's not to love, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of the more recent version, like the Beck, the hunted knife.
Yeah.
I think that's a more recent version of a movie knife that really made a big impact.
Oh, yeah.
Most definitely.
That was a crazy movie, but.
So one of the other ones that we've asked a bunch of times in the past is about if you could spend a day with any maker from history, right? Well, if you had the time machine, whatever, who would you go spend the day with?
Oh gosh. I've always admired Jim Hammond for his cleanliness of his work, and I don't know if you guys have seen his work, but
oh yeah,
amazing! It's perfection in grinding. It's just like holy mackerel. He would be fun to spend the day with to learn how he does that.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, Jim Hammond would be up there, and I'm a big fan of Alan Elijahwitz.
Yep.
He's so creative, and the way he can work with machines, and it'd be fun to learn that.
Right.
And he's just a wealth of knowledge. And,
Yeah. Alan's a clever guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Alan's forgot more than most of us will ever know.
There you go.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really admire Alan and a lot of what he's done for the community, and his work is, he just does his thing, and it's stunning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of Jim Hammond, I always loved, isn't he the one that did the seal knives with like the straight line file work on the handles? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
Yep,
did that
seal
seal
tack.
tack. Yeah.
Yeah, they were beautiful. Those were always very inspirational knives.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like his work was on the cover of maybe some of the early Sheffield catalog,
Yeah.
I think, which is, I'm dating myself because there's not even a Sheffield knife supply anymore. But
Makes me sad. They had to
yeah, I
mess
love
with all
Dan.
that.
Dan was awesome.
Yeah, no shit, dude.
Oh, they shut down, huh?
Oh yeah, they're all gone.
Hmm.
Hello, Sheffield Knives. She was awesome. Loved her.
All right. Well, Shane, thanks for walking us through all of that, and some very cool stories and some great insight into your shop and your work and kind of your approach to stuff. I don't know. You guys have any other questions before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you taking the time, and this was very,
Yeah.
very interesting. I've been a fan of your work for a long time,
Oh, thank you.
and I'd never met you at a show. I don't think, maybe in passing, but this was a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate
I admire your work significantly more at this point in time.
Makes your hands hurt just hearing about it, doesn't it?
That's right.
A little bit. But
He's also convinced you're crazy.
No, I love it. I absolutely love the fact that you're working out of basically a one stall garage and building high-end art and making a living. There's nothing not to like there. So props to you. And if I can ever do anything for you, let me know.
Thank you.
Well, we have to say thank you to our sponsors, American Metal Exchange, Giant Mouse Knives, our friends on Patreon, Bob and Suze, with their new video stuff coming out. So thanks all for your support. And I think I mentioned the folks from Patreon, but we appreciate you sticking with us. They're kind of the real engine beneath this thing, and it keeps it all moving for us. So we really appreciate y'all.
Well, I'm just going to say the Terrazula thing is just in time for Christmas, it appears.
Just in time for Christmas. Put it on your list, Tom.
I'll probably get it for myself. My wife doesn't get me anything for Christmas. She says Christmas is all year long for me, and she's not wrong. I'm an adult, and if there's something I want,
not wrong.
I get it.
She's not wrong. I'm just glad all those packages for Tom go to the shop.
Yeah, me too.
Conversations could be much more difficult if that were not the case.
Oh.
I know she doesn't listen. That's why I was okay to say it.
Yeah,
out
she
loud.
doesn't. We were at a basketball game the other day, and it popped up, a new podcast came out, and I'm like, oh, what's that? She's like, I don't know. I don't listen to it. I'm like, but they're famous.
Right.
Infamous.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's not buying it.
She's in the nobody listens to that category.
Yeah. You and three people listen to your podcast.
We have at least 3 Patreon supporters, so I know it's bigger than that.
You ain't going to convince her.
No, I won't even bother.
Yeah.
No, Amy's there with her. All right, Shane, thanks again for joining us, man. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Keep kicking ass.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Later, folks.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account, @CryingKnives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram @BirchTreeBlades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram @msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram @markofthemaker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.